Hey everybody, back with another episode. It's lunchtime, time to do some studying. And this is an exciting moment because we are moving on from OSPF. I'm sure we'll be going back at some point to review, but time to get into some different technologies. And as a result, today we are going to be going through the Jeremy IT Labs Day 39. We jump forward a little bit. Day 39 lab, which is DHCP. So over the weekend, I read through the content in Cisco's CCNA in 60 days about DHCP. I had some familiarity with it already as a protocol, dynamic host configuration protocol. And so this is basically where you've got hosts on a network that don't have statically assigned IP addresses, and the DHCP server or the relay server can assign them automatically. So there's a pool that will configure, and we'll go through all this. You can already see that we're going to be basically doing those things in this lab. So it should go pretty fast, hopefully. We'll see. The other thing was I wanted to mention, hopefully the audio on this video is a little bit better. I realized after I recorded the last video that while it did sound a bit better thanks to the mic I'm using now, I've got this little DJI mic. It was recording in stereo and I only had the left channel working. So now it's in mono, therefore both channels are working, and you should get audio from both, I guess, sides of your phone or whatever, however you're listening to this. All right, anyway, let's get started. So here we are. We've got a lab, and step one is configure the following DHCP pools on R2. All right, so let's start there. It looks like there is connectivity between R2, or between everything but R2 and R1. I assume that's going to be fixed as part of this lab. So let's just start with number one. The CLI, gigabit is up. En conf t. All right, now in terms of configuring DHCP pools, I think we need to be in DHCP configuration mode. DHCP, let me just look what we have. All right, so we've got to do a few things first, though. We have to configure the pools, which we can do here from DHCP global configuration mode. We also have to configure the reserve addresses, meaning we need to assign addresses that should not be sent out or made available as part of DHCP. So let's go ahead and do that first, because I think we would do that as using the excluded address command. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So excluded address. And then we're going to give it a range or a single. So for this one, it looks like pool number one, the range is 192.168.1.1, and then 192, the high end of the range. Let me just do the question mark to confirm that. The high IP address, okay? So 192.168.1.10. So these addresses should not be utilized or handed out as part of the configuration process. All right, so I'm going to press enter, and I'll go ahead and do the next one. I'll just go to do up arrow and do the next range. So 192.168.2.1. So I'm looking at this line here. Pool 2, 192.168, blah, 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 reserve .10 to .1 to .10. So 192.168.2.10. All right, that's the next one. And then finally, this third one is for pool 3, just a single address. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the high end of the range, and we can just do a single address. So that's going to be 203.0.113.1. I believe. All right, 203.0.113.1. Okay, next up, configure. Okay, so now we're going to go back and do the pools. So let's see. IP DHCP pool, and then I'm assuming pool name. So this is going to be pool 1, Pool1, question mark. All right, so that is going to drop us into DHCP, I guess, pool configuration. So we are out of sort of global configuration now into this specific DHCP pools configuration. Let's see what's in here. We've got default router, DNS server, domain name, exit, network, no, and option. All right, so we've got things that we need to configure here. First of all, the network is going to be, as indicated, 192.168.1.0. It's a /24, so we're going to give it just a standard subnet .1.0, and that's going to be 255.255.255.0. I'm curious, anything else after that? No. All right, and then the DNS server is, I assume, just an IP address. Let me question mark that. Set the IP address, so it's Google's IP address, 8.8.8.8. Does it need a subnet? No, it doesn't. All right, DNS. The domain name, let me see, is just looks like a string, and that's going to be jeremysitlab.com. And does it take anything else? No. All right, and the default gateway. So I believe that's going to be default router, question mark, the default router's IP address, and the default gateway is the R1 router, which I assume is the G00 interface. Does that have an IP address yet? G00 on R2 is configured. Let's look at R1 and see if the G00 interface has an IP address. And we will use that. So en show IP interface brief. 00 does not. The 192.168.1.1 does, the 01. Maybe that's what I need to use. I'll use that for now and see if it works, I guess. Default router, 192.168.1.1. All right, so everything's going to be sent to the G01 interface of router 1. Default gateway is router 1, okay. All right, so that's it for the first one. Now we're going to do IP DHCP pool, and we'll say pool 2. All right, and we've already done the reservation, so now we're in pool 2. So let's say DNS server 8.8.8.8. Domain name is jeremysitlab.com. The network is 192.168.2.0, and that's /24. And the default router is R2. Okay, that's interesting. So the default gateway is the default router's R2. So I'm going to go ahead and do its G01 interface, and that's going to be 192.168.2.1. All right, I think that's correct. Now let's do IP DHCP pool 3. And that just has a network. That's going to be 203.0.113.0, and it's a /30. 252, okay. All right, now that's all done. Configure R1's G00 interface as a DHCP client. What IP address does it configure? All right, so let's see. To configure the 00 interface as a client, I think we need to go to Global Configuration. We need to actually go into the interface. And then I think we need to say IP address, question mark, DHCP, question mark, nothing, okay. All right, now I think it's considered a DHCP client. So if we say do show IP interface brief, did it get a thing? No. Let me do no shut to bring it up. All right, now it's up and it looks like it got an address. So that's pretty awesome. Let me do show IP interface brief. All right, and so it's 00 got 203.11.0.113.2, and that makes sense because it got the first available address after we excluded the .1 address from that subnet. All right, and now everything is seemingly hooked up correctly. All right, so that's done. Configure R1's G00 interface as a DHCP client. Configure R1 as a DHCP relay agent for the 192.168.1.0/24 subnet. So configure R1 as a relay agent for this subnet, 192.168.0. All right, so we are in it. How do we make it a relay agent? Let me just check a couple things first. So I'm going to get out of this interface. IP DHCP question mark. So relay, okay. Information, trust all, that doesn't seem right. Let me go into the interface. Configure R1 as a DHCP relay agent for the whatever. Okay, so gigabit Ethernet O/1, the one that's inside the subnet in question. IP DHCP, no. DHCP, no. All right, I gotta Google it. I don't know how to do this. Let's see, how to configure a router as a DHCP relay CCNA. So, okay, global configuration mode, go into the interface. Oh, I see. All right, we're in the interface and we need to say IP question mark, and the command is helper address. Helper address. And now we need the IP destination. So we need the destination of the DHCP server. Replace DHCP server IP helper address with the actual address of the DHCP server. And so in this case, I think the DHCP server is R2. And I assume it's going to be its G00's interface's IP address. So let me just try that. Configure R1 as the DHCP blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's going to be 203.0.113.1. That's the IP address of the DHCP server from R1's perspective. All right. Use the CLI of PC1 and PC2 to make them request an IP address from their DHCP server. All right, so let's go to PC2, desktop command prompt. And I think we want to say, well, first of all, let's look at ipconfig. So it doesn't look like there's an IP address. So ipconfig/renew. And it got an IP address, I think. ipconfig. Its fast Ethernet address is now 192.168.2.11. 192.168.2.11, which I believe it got from its DHCP server router 2. Did we see what the okay, we have this is good too. We have first of all, we can see its default gateway, which is the G01 interface of router 2. That makes sense. Its DNS server is what we configured on router 2. Subnet mask and IP address are the network that we configured on router 2. The default gateway is the IP address of G01 on router 2. And it has the first available address that wasn't reserved from the 192.168.2 subnet. So that seems to have worked as expected. I will assume that for router 1, the IP address assigned is going to be 192.168.1.11 as well for PC1. Let me just confirm that as well. So desktop CLI, IP config, and it already has the .12, so maybe it issued that command naturally, but let me do this. ipconfig flush, I think, is to how to remove DHCP binding windows. Go there. ipconfig release /release. All right, and then I'm going to do renew and see what it gets. All right, so it got 192.168.1.11 as I believe is expected. All right, default gateway, DNS server, connection specific, fast Ethernet. Okay, great. Let's just do ipconfig again and see that we got the other stuff that we configured. So the domain name, default gateway is 192.168.1.1. That makes sense. IP, subnet mask, etc. One thing we don't see on here is the DNS server is on this menu. Okay, so that does appear to be correct as well. All right, so I think all that seems to make sense. Let's see, what is the... Okay, well, they have IP addresses. So PC1's IP address, let me see if I can hover over this and see what PC2's IP address. Anyway, all right, let me just do this. So 192.168.1.11. I'm going to see if I can ping 192.168.1.11 from here. And I'm not sure if we have routes hooked up to... okay. All right, it works. So we must have had to do some ARP resolution on a couple different legs, maybe. Probably, yeah, ARP on switch 1 makes it down, and then ARP on switch 2 to come back. So that's why we lost the first 2 packets, but then now we can successfully ping back and forth. So pretty straightforward, handful of commands to configure the DHCP pools. Interesting command to configure the DHCP relay. I was a bit unsure about which interfaces to configure things on, but I think it's all hooked up correctly. The pings are working. The IP addresses are being assigned where we expect, etc. So R2 is our DHCP server. R1 is a relay for the 192.168.1 subnet. Our PC1 in that subnet was able to basically go through the 4-step DHCP process to get an IP address. PC2 has an IP address, and pings are successfully working across. So pretty happy about that. Pretty short one today. I think this is the only video I'm going to do, at least right now, on DHCP. I'm not even sure you have to configure it on the CCNA. It might just be a sort of analytical, do you know how it works kind of thing, and not actually do a lab similar to this, but I could be wrong about that. The next two topics from the weekend are Network Time Protocol, NTP, and DNS. So expect to see a couple more of those videos coming out shortly in the coming days. All right, everybody have a good lunch hour, have a good rest of the week, and happy Monday.